Uh, Namo Namah to all of you. This indeed gives me a great pleasure to be today with you all and to speak on this topic, which is very dear to my heart, Sanskritam and its importance in this age of science and technology. So before I go to the topic, let me introduce myself. So I am Sampadanand Mishra. I live in Pondicherry, and I look after all the activities that takes place in Sri Aurobindo Foundation for Indian Culture, which is a part of Sri Aurobindo Society. And I have been a student of Sanskritam right from my childhood, and I keep sharing my thoughts in the form of workshops, in the form of writings, in the form of lecture series, and interactions with whoever is genuinely interested in learning this language and knowing the whole heritage that we have through this language. So today's topic is importance of this language in this era, in this the present time period. So why do we talk about the present time period? Because Sanskritam has been a language of this land ever since the language has been there as a medium of expression for the humanity, and the importance of this language can be evaluated from various angles, and today I will be speaking about few features of this language which makes it relevant forever. So it can be looked at from two different angles. The first thing is the whole scientific heritage that we have, and which is Sanskritam as a repository, as a treasure house of this whole scientific heritage. This is one side that we can look at it. What are the treasure that we have in this language, which speaks about the whole scientific temperament of the ancient Indian seers and sages. On another side, Sanskritam as a language, how systematic, how scientific, and then what is the relevance of this language? What is the practical value of learning this language in this era when people start asking questions, everything from a scientific point of view, everything from a logical point of view? If there is something that is very practically helping us in bringing solutions to our lives problems, and if there is something by which we gain something, then we accept it. So let's look at it from this angle, that how Sanskritam is important, significant, and how it is relevant to every one of us in our day-to-day life. The first thing, let me talk a little bit about the scientific heritage that we have. So if we look at the whole scientific heritage of India, that we do know that there were scientific the contributions from the ancient seers and sages in almost every field of science and technology. Like we know that there was the science of astronomy, there was the science of medicine, there was the science of music, there was science of currents, there was science of shipbuilding, there was science of metallurgy, there was science of architecture, there was even science of language, and there is no end to the list. So there is no branch of science and technology where our ancient seers and sages have not made original contributions. So and tremendous amount of literature are available There are plenty of literature even which are not yet published or in manuscript form. There are plenty of literature which are published, translated, and there have been conferences about it. There has been much talk about this aspect of the language, and Sanskritam as a treasure house of the science and technology, the scientific and technological literature. So there have been special conferences, there have been special books, articles, research articles published everywhere, that one can find plenty of materials with regard to this. So we find that in science and technology, India was an advanced country, and it is from India that it has moved to other parts of the world through Arabs. It has, like the contact either through trade or by some other means. So this contact with the Indian seers and sages or the scientists, that it has traveled from this land to other parts of the world, and it has inspired other parts of the world in the field of science and technology, and there is any iota of doubt about it. So there have been a lot of research works which have been going on, and then still there will be many other uh, works which will keep happening in this field. And we know that the amount of materials that we have, the amount of materials that we can have unending research into this branch of knowledge. But what is important, what I'm going to focus today, is not the scientific heritage of India, but Sanskritam as a language, how it is relevant to our day-to-day life, what we are going to gain by learning this language, by introducing it to the children of ours, and by learning it perfectly, by learning it and then using it uh, consciously with awareness, a language which has many things to contribute towards our inner and outer growth. So before I proceed, so let me read out a beautiful passage from Sri Aurobindo, who speaks about this whole contribution of India to the world of science and technology. So I quote: not only was India in the first rank of mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, medicine, surgery, all the branches of physical knowledge which were practiced in ancient times, but she was, along with the Greeks, the teacher of Arabs, from whom Europe recovered the lost habit of scientific inquiry and got the basis from which modern science started. In many directions, India had the priority of discovery. To take only two striking examples among a multitude, the decimal notation in mathematics, or the perception that the earth is a moving body in astronomy, Chala Prithavi, Sthira Bhati, the earth moves and only appears to be still, said the Indian astronomer many centuries before Galileo. This great development would hardly have been possible in a nation whose thinkers and men of learning were led by its metaphysical tendencies to turn away from the study of nature. A remarkable feature of the Indian mind was a close attention to the things of life, a disposition to observe minutely its salient facts, to systematize, and to found in each department of it a science, a shastra, a well founded scheme and rule. That is at least a good beginning of the scientific tendency, and not the sign of a culture capable only of unsubstantial metaphysics. So, this is what Sri Aurobindo says, and this remarkable passage of Sri Aurobindo, it says many things about the scientific. It's not just the scientific heritage, the history of science and technology that we should focus on, but the scientific temperament, the scientific inquiry capability that our ancient seers and sages had developed. So, if we want to evaluate the contribution of India to the humanity, these three important contributions I keep mentioning about it in most of my talks or in my classes, that the three greatest contributions of India to the whole humanity. One is Sanskritam as a language, very scientific language. We will be talking about it later. Then Ayurveda, the medical science, which is a very, very fascinating subject. And it shows how the scientific development, the scientific temperament that was possessed by our ancient seers and sages. And what Sri Aurobindo just now said, the keen observation of everything in life, everything that surrounded man. So the keen observation of it and drawing inspiration from the nature and observing the nature and drawing materials from the nature to build on the science and the scientific knowledge. So that was important. So Ayurveda and the yoga. So Sanskritam, Ayurveda, and yoga, these three greatest contributions of India to the humanity will be remembered forever, and then people will be always jumping into these three realms to find out the secret of well-being, the secret of success in life, the secret of everything, every advancement that the humanity needs to make in its evolutionary journey. So these three, Sanskritam, Ayurveda, and yoga, can contribute immensely towards the progressive evolution of humanity. So before again I go to Sanskritam as a language, so how it is going to be helpful and how it is relevant to our life. So let's talk a little bit about this Ayurveda. Now, Ayurveda is something like I'm not an expert in Ayurveda, but what inspires me, what draws me towards Ayurveda, the amazing fact that when in so many thousands of years before, when there was no lab to experiment something like the kind of facilities that today we have, so those kind of facilities were not available so many centuries before, so many hundreds of years before. So in spite of unavailability of many things through which the experiments could be made, believe me that in Ayurveda, what it has contributed to the field of medical science is something very, very, incomparable. If like when we consider India's contribution to science and technology. So just imagine how the Vaidyas of ancient times could find out the exact properties of the plants. So, what was the way that they could discover these properties of hundreds of plants which were used, which are even used now for making medicines or used for the healing purpose? So, how does a man without the help of any uh, lab facility or the kind of facilities needed to find out properties in the state of unavailability of such things, how could one find out? I'm just throwing this some insightful points which always keep me drawing towards the Ayurveda, and there are plenty of things. Then we talk about, say for example, what we learn from Sushruta. So today, biomimicry has been a catchword in machine design and in the design of many like robots or any other scientific instruments. So so biomimicry, sometimes the students of today, they know that biomimicry is a contribution of the modern Europe. But when we look at Sushruta, who is the father of surgery, so he made surgical instruments. And if we analyze the surgical instruments which were used by Sushruta or which are mentioned in Sushruta Samhita, we find that each and every instrument that Sushruta made is made by observing many things in the nature. I give you one example. Say in surgery, one needs an instrument which has to hold some parts very strongly but without hurting it. So it holds it apart, so then some uh, operation can take place. So that part is kept separately. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt that part. So Sushruta observes which element in the nature has this feature. Now he observes that the tiger's jaws. So the tiger jaw can tear apart. It is very sharp, and the teeth are very sharp, and it can tear apart. It is very strong. But at the same time, when it carries its cubs, so it holds it very tightly without hurting the cub. So then Sushruta makes one instrument which is called Vyaghramukha, and he names it in this manner, Vyaghramukha, easy to understand. And then the moment we know it, we also get connected with the nature. Now today, the humanity has been going through a very difficult phase, and we know that much of it is because of our disrespect to the nature, our no contact with the nature, our no study of the no relationship with the nature, no love for the nature. But when we look at more than the scientific temperament, the scientific advancement, the technological advancement, a great inspiration that we should draw from the ancient seers and sages is that how deeply they were connected with the nature and drew inspiration from the nature and built the knowledge system based on what they learned from the nature. So nature was everything. And again, each and every element that we find in this language, whether it belongs to this branch of knowledge or that branch of knowledge, we find a lot of materials through which we get connected with the nature. It connects us with the nature. It speaks many things about the nature, and it creates love for the nature. And when this respect for the nature, it increases in humanity, the nature itself, it it pours its abundance. If the disrespect continues, nature hides all its resources. So the humanity faces scarcity of many things, scarcity of water, scarcity of this and that, which are needed for the sustenance of our life. So that's how we can bring sustainability to our life, by being deeply connected with the nature and developing a deeper relationship with the nature and having respect for the nature. So this is what I'm going to talk a little bit more in the next few minutes, connecting it with certain aspects of the language. So from here, I move to Sanskritam as a language which is relevant. Now, as a language, if we study it properly, if we study it properly, its phonetics, its semantics, its linguistic value, its phonetic value, its semantic value. So if we study it properly and start using it consciously, then it helps immensely in understanding the shastras, the treasures which are preserved for us in this language in a better way than studying it through translations. Okay, to some extent, the translations, a good translation could help us understand it, but we can explore many more things beyond the translated meaning of a particular word if we are deeply connected with the words of Sanskritam, with the root sounds of the Sanskritam, with the root significances of the Sanskritam words that we have. So we can explore for ourselves many more things, not just one or two things which are relevant in a particular context, but beyond the contextual meanings also we will develop a sense of the deeper nuances, the subtler nuances of the words, of the root sounds, of the root significances, which will help immensely to explore many hidden aspects of this language, of this treasure that we have, the literature, and then we have a deeper understanding of our own heritage, and then start using language as a uh, as an important tool for our own development. So coming back to the subject of importance of Sanskritam as a language is very, very rich when we look at the the linguistic value of it, the phonetic value of it, the semantic value of it. When we look at every aspect of a language, its vocabulary, its root sounds, its root significances, then we find that it's a very, very rich language. One can compare it with other languages if one wishes to, it's fine, but delving deep into this language is amazing. It's an amazing experience. It's always a joy to take a dip into this oceanic vastness of Sanskritam, and there is no end to it. One just, like, enjoys, one just is in a blissful state when one enters into the spirit of this language, whether one is studying the kavya, whether one is studying the scientific literature, whether one is engaged in the deeper spiritual scriptures. Its joy is the ultimate gain. Anandan na parolabha, and there is no greater gain than this ananda that we draw by entering into the spirit of this language. So the features of this language is amazing. So one can look at the simple aspect of the sounds, and on many occasions I have spoken about the significance of its alphabet, the varnamala. I've spoken about the details of each and every sounds on different occasions, but I also, take the opportunity of repeating certain elements of the sound system that we have in the Varnamala. So Samskrita Varnamala is one of the most amazing system or a tool for which helps immensely in maintaining our well-being. I myself use it as a tool for healing myself. I also do the Samskrita Varnamala Abhyas with many people who are connected with me and learning the Sanskritam from me. And then we have seen that how each and every sound is so packed with its force, its purity, its vibrational quality is so pure, so deep, so resonating that it starts immediately working in our system. So most of you who are listening to this talk now and will be listening to it later, so all those who are familiar with a little bit with Sanskritam must know the importance of this alphabet or the Varnamala system. But today I will be focusing only on three important sounds from the Sanskritam alphabet, which can be utilized for the practical purpose, where one can experience that how it helps in our, maintaining our well-being. So health is something which is very, very important. And today in this situation, we are talking about how we should be more and more aware of our well-being, taking care of our health, the cleanliness, the immunity system, everything has to be perfect so then we can save ourselves from the dangers which are always waiting for us to attack. So in this case, yoga, pranayama have been a great help. So yoga itself has been proved to be. I mean, today we need a scientific validation. Of course, in ancient times, it was a common sense, and it was also developed not with the aim of scientifically validating something, but it developed because of the close affinity with the nature, because of the self-realization, because of going deep and living within oneself. One explores many subtle layers of the world, subtle layers of one's own existence, and then one comes out with a system which helps to the rest of the humanity. Now, yoga as a science has, like asanas, pranayama, dhyana, dharana. So there are so many other aspects connected with the yoga. So yoga is not just connected with hatha yoga. You have raja yoga, you have so many other kinds of yoga. So we're not, this session I'm not going to talk about the significance of yoga or the system of yoga, but I mention it because I want to connect it with the language, and then how this language is deeply connected with the science of pranayama, and then how the practice of the varnamala or certain aspects of it helps immensely, in the same way how pranayam helps in building our immunity system or making our respiratory system, keeping our respiratory system perfect. So uh, there are three unique sounds. So other sounds, like starting from, you say, the swara varnas, the vowel sounds or the consonantal sounds, those sounds are there in other languages also, but what is unique to Sanskritam is these three important sounds which I am going to speak about. One is the anuswara, one is visarga, and one is urasya. Of course, about Anuswara and Visarga, people have spoken about it. But something about Urasya, which I keep highlighting, and my experiment with Urasya, and then I keep continuing with this experiment with many things bringing into it. And then I myself have experienced how immensely the Urasya sounds helps in building immunity and then getting rid of or keeping ourselves in a state of swasthata. So, Anuswara, which is a pure nasal sound in Sanskritam. Of course, there are variations of Anuswara in Vedic system, in other places also. But the pure Anuswara, where the mouth is completely closed and the air release is only through the nose, and so this is where the nasal sound we create. And then when we do the anuswara from the pranayama point of view, we have this humming sound which can be compared with the Brahmari pranayama. And the impact that one gets by reciting Om or simply practicing this anuswara. So one can chant Om, or one can connect this anuswara with all the vowel sounds like um, im, im. So with all the vowel sounds, one can connect the anuswara and start practicing it, and it helps immensely. I have seen people practicing after learning it, practicing anuswara, have got rid of their sinus problem, have got rid of their nasal congestion, so have got rid of their breathing difficulties. So this is how the Sanskritam becomes very practical. And when you recite a particular shloka, when you read something in Sanskritam, so Anuswara and the Visarga sounds and the Urasya sounds that we are going to talk about are always there, always present. So one is bound to recite those. So merely reading Sanskritam texts, Sanskritam shlokas also helps immensely, because those sounds are very much present, and one, if one articulates those sounds uh, properly, so one benefits more. The similar way, Visarga. So Anuswara is represented by a dot above. So where, so a dot is a bindu where it also brings the focus. It also brings concentration. Okay, it brings ekagrata. So that is why the bindu, it is a concentrated place. So if the visarga is represented by two sounds. Now, in Sanskritam, the sound and the symbol also have their symbolism behind it. The symbol that we use as two dots. So you can see that the right ucharana of visarga. So many people who pronounce visarga as aha, aha, ihi. So which is not the right pronunciation of visarga. Some people may agree with me, some people may not agree with me, but when we look at the right ucharana of visarga, so visarga means release. So one has to release all the breath that one has. Like when we are relaxed, we say, oh, ah. So, Phani Nishwasa Sadrusham. So this is what is mentioned in the Shastras, that Phani Nishwasa Sadrusho Visargo Bhavet. So Visarga has to be like Phani Nishwasa. So as a snake snake's hissing sound. Ah. So in this manner, so we can uh, pronounce or articulate the visarga sound. Ah, ah, eh. And when we pronounce it, we can see that we can feel the beginning point of it in the navel region, and then we also see an end point where it comes out and rests somewhere. So there are 2 points. So maybe that is this experience of the beginning. There is a point from where it begins and and where it ends. So these 2 points are felt while articulating the visarga. Maybe that is one of the reasons like why visarga is represented by 2 dots, that the beginning dot and the end point, the beginning point and the end point. So ah. So this visarga, like the way I said the anuswara, so visarga can be combined with all the vowel sounds and then utilized for the practice, like ah, eh, eh. And when one does it, you can practically see that there is the breath is getting released and held out, something which is equivalent to bahya kumbhaka in the pranayama. And bahya kumbhaka is extremely powerful in balancing, in bringing focus and then making us free from our hyperactivity. So if a child is hyper, is very fickle, and is not able to concentrate on its study, not able to concentrate on anything, so one can like ask the child to practice this visarga, or give certain verses which has got maximum visarga sounds, even just reciting shanti, shanti, Shanti with Visarga, because every Shanti ends with the Visarga, also helps immensely in bringing this focus. So how pranayama helps in balancing the our the pranic energy. So even bringing dynamism to pranic energy, the same way, if pranayama is a manipulation of the breath in a certain way, in a measured way, so then the pranic energy is balanced and brought, some certain dynamism is brought into it. The same way, when we speak Sanskritam, it also manipulates our breath in a very measured way, in a very rhythmic way, about which I will speak after I explain you the urasya sounds. So many people, even many people, many students who have been studying Sanskrit for a long time, or students of Sanskritam, or the scholars of Sanskritam, they many of them even not are aware of what the Urasya sounds are. Although while teaching the phonetics, we do mention about, along with all other places of articulation, Urah is one place of articulation, but while studying, we were never explained about by our teachers, like which where the why Urah is mentioned as a place of pronunciation. So Urah means the chest, which refers to the lungs. And today, like in this situation, we are talking about the respiratory system, so strengthening it. So how our lungs will be strengthened to face the situation that is the humanity which is going through. So in this situation, I would suggest that the practice of Urasya sounds helps immensely in maintaining our lungs, the strength of our lungs. So which are the Urasya sounds? Urasya sounds are not found in the Varnamala of Sanskritam. Urasya sounds are certain combined sounds where, in Paniniya Shiksha, so Panini mentions about the Urasya that Hakara, when the last sound Ha, which is the lowest expression available in Sanskrit Varnamala and which needs maximum air release also, when it is combined with 7 other sounds, fundamental sounds which we find in the Sanskrit Varnamala, so then it becomes Urasya. So for example, like when Ha is combined with Na, when Ha is combined with Na, when Ha is combined with Ma, and ya, ra, la, va, then its pronunciation shifts from the kantha to uras. So when it is done rightly, one can experience it, one can feel how this becomes a urasya sound. Now, if when ha is combined with na, it becomes na. When it is combined with na, it is articulated as na. When it is combined with ma, it is articulated as ma. When it is combined with ya, it is articulated as ya. And with ra, it will be articulated as ra. Similarly, la and va. So when we do it like na, na, ma, ya, ra, la, va, we can see that the sound ha, which is kanthya, it becomes urasya. Sometimes even some traditional scholars who sometimes may not agree with this, because in some pratishakyas the pronunciation of these sounds sometimes is said that in the word brahman, so the ma has to be pronounced first and then ha. So, okay, one can do that. There may be certain school in which that kind of pronunciation was prominent, and then for that a shastra has been created, or the grammar has been later, a grammar has been, a rule has been created for that. But looking at it from a practical point of view, so if we say brahman, then it doesn't become urasya, so ura doesn't have a role to play. So because it is marked as a urasya sound, so when you say brahman, one can feel that it is a really urasya sound. So I accept these seven sounds, and the practice of the seven sounds I recommend to keep our lungs perfect. Ma. And believe me, if you can do it 20 25 times, this whole cycle of seven sounds, you can feel that how much of exertion it requires of the breath. So these three important sounds, when we speak Sanskritam, when we sing certain shlokas, we chant certain shlokas, we chant certain mantras, and we sing songs in Sanskritam, we read a passage in Sanskritam, we see that the presence of these anuswara, visarga, and urasya, like urasya sounds like in the words like aparahana, madhyahana, chihna, hyah, Brahman, Ahvana, Prahlada, Ahlada, Hrasva. So when we can even make a collection of such words and then repeat it, or collection of certain verses or mantras which have got maximum urasya sounds, and those can be practiced in our day-to-day life for getting the benefit of it. So this is one aspect of like how, in a very scientific way, if a pranayama is scientific, the same way the Sanskritam, with all its structure, with all its sound system, is also scientific in its nature, and it helps immensely in maintaining our well-being, which can be used as a perfect tool in the present situation to maintain our well-being and to fight against all the disastrous things which come upon our health. So apart from this sound system, one more thing which I wanted to talk about it is the rhythmic pattern that we find in Sanskritam. So which is very well, like every language has its own rhythmic pattern. But when we talk about the rhythmic patterns in Sanskritam, there is certain uniqueness in it which I'm going to explain. So in Sanskritam, if we try to find out, if we analyze the literature, we find that maximum number of literature, whether it belongs to the realm of metaphysics, whether it belongs to the realm of spirituality, religion, philosophy, or it belongs to the pure poetic literature. I mean poetry, or pure scientific literature. So we find that maximum literature, whether it like even the scientific literature, so they are expressed in the form of poetry. So poetry is something very, very natural to this language. So like you speak this language, it sounds as if you are singing, as if you were reciting poetry. So this is the significance of this language. Poetry is very, very natural to this language. So in here, dictionaries are written in poetry. Chemistry is presented in poetry. Mathematics is written in poetry. The grammar is written in poetry. Like any scientific literature, it's written in poetry. It's unimaginable to see, and it is one of the reasons that why it was possible for people, and it is even possible today for people to recite and remember thousands of verses or even a complete text, like in Sanskritam, because it is written in poetry, because poetry is easy, it is an aid to the memory, and it facilitates, it strengthens our memory power, the faculty of memory, and it helps immensely in storing, in recollecting. So uh, that is why the oral tradition was very, very powerful and could preserve thousands of texts without writing it. So the poetry helps immensely in building our memory. This is one aspect. The other aspect is that the rhythmic patterns that we see. So if we analyze, so that is the kind of research work that I have taken, like how the different metrical patterns, they create different emotional, different spiritual, or different kind of environment within and around, which are immensely again helpful in maintaining our well-being. So that is why I call this yoga, because you must have heard about many different system of yoga. So I call this system of yoga a chando yoga, and through this chando yoga I would like to bring the element of chandas, where it helps, like the yoga helps, different components of yoga helps in maintaining our well-being. So the same way chando yoga is a powerful tool which is going to help. When we were students, we heard about stories like how Mayura Kavi, who has written the Surya Shatakam, so he could get rid of his problem, like his physical problem, the suffering that he had. So he could get rid of by reciting 100 verses that he himself composed, dedicated to sun, Surya. That is why it is known as Surya Shataka. And all the 100 verses are composed in Sragdhara meter. So that time it sounded like these are all fanciful stories, or we don't know whether it was true or it was not true. But later, when I started experimenting on the different metrical patterns, I could find that yes, it is no fanciful story at all. There is a science behind it. So I tied up with one of my friends, so who is a Vastu consultant, and then he had developed a certain kind of laser antenna made up of ashtadhatu, and where he used to measure the energy of a place, whether the place is uh, with negative energy or positive energy. So if the negative energy is prominent in the place, so how it has to be rectified. So he had his own like system in Vastu, how to correct or how to increase the positivity in the place. So with him I tried. So we went to a place where the negative energy was maximum in that room, because it was a very wrongly built room with lots of wrong corners and all these things. So we could measure that the negative energy is prominent in that place. So what we did to experiment it, I started chanting certain verses in Shraddhara for about 45 minutes. And after this, so while I was chanting, and he could observe his laser antenna, so what way it is reacting. So it showed that after 45 minutes of recitation of Sragdhara, so his instrument could show that the negativity is getting dispelled and the place is getting filled with positive energy. So that gave us certain kind of like hope that yes, this can be a beautiful experiment. And then how the recitation of a particular meter. So then I started doing a lot of other experiments on Sragdhara meter and on other various other metrical patterns that we have in Sanskritam. So then I did certain experiment on Shardula Vikriditam. Now Shardula Vikriditam is a chandas, is a metrical pattern in Sanskritam which has got 19 syllables. So it is named as Shardula Vikriditam, which literally can be translated as tiger's play. Please remember, this is also another kind of like research work which I have done, and then I've explained like each and every name of Sanskrit chandas, the Sanskrit metrical pattern has certain like closeness, certain elements of nature, because all these metrical patterns were inspired by the nature. So these metrical patterns also we see available in the nature. So if the poet, if you find a chandas, a metrical pattern which is known as bhujanga prayatam, the snake's movement. So if you analyze, you can find that the movement, the arrangement of syllables by short and long, by Laghu Guru, arrangement of these syllables in Bhujanga Prayatam is similar to the snake's movement. A snake moves while moving, although we know that snakes moves always in a zigzag manner, but it is not totally true. The snake does move one straight and two times curved. So that is how the arrangement of syllables in Bhujanga Prayatam, you find that one short syllable followed by two long syllables, so imitating the snake's movement. So that is why it is known as Bhujanga Prayatam. So when we recite any verse in Bhujanga Prayatam, for example, Natato Namata Nabandhor Nadata Naputro Naputri Nabhrutyo Nabharta Najaya Navidya Navrutir Mameva Gatistvam Gatistvam Tvameka Bhavani. So this is Bhujanga Prayatam from Bhavani Ashtakam of Shankaracharya. So we do feel we can connect it with the snake's movement. So I was referring to the another metrical pattern, which is the Sardula Vikriditam. So my experiment from Sragdhara moved to Shardula Vikriditam. Now Shardula Vikriditam is tiger's play, again connected with the nature. So why it is given as Shardula Vikriditam? So why this chandas, this metrical pattern is called Shardula Vikriditam? The reason is, like if you observe, when a tiger wants to attack the deer or its prey, so it sits in leaning back, and in a very poised state. And from there, when the prey comes close, so its first leap is a long leap followed by short leaps. So this is like if you go to any Animal Planet or National Geography channel or any other channel where you can see this tiger when it is ready to attack its prey, and from its position, so it takes the first leap of the tiger is a long leap, and then it is followed by short leaps. So in Shardula Vikriditam, so it has 19 syllables. So how it becomes the tiger's play is that the pause arrangement, the yati sthana, if we look at, so the first pause, so from syllable number, as per the rule, so from syllable number 1 to 12, it has to be in one breath. And then the second breath, then the second set will be from the syllable number 13 to 19. So 12 by 7 is the pause pattern. कस्तूरी तिलकं ललाटपटले वक्षस्थले कौस्तुभम् नासाग्रे वरमौक्तिकं करतले वेणुं करे कङ्कणम्. सर्वाङ्गे हरिचन्दनं च कलयन् कण्ठे च मुक्तावलिं गोपस्त्रीपरिवेष्टितो विजयते गोपालचूडामणिः. So this is Shardula Vikritikam. And when you recite it, see how in a very measured way your breath gets manipulated. So from syllable number 1 to 12, like the first leap of the long leap of the tiger, so it straight comes on the 12th syllable and then on the 19th syllable. So the long leap of the tiger followed by short leaps. That is why it is known as Shardula Vikritam. So in this manner, I have analyzed hundreds of metrical patterns and then linked it to what connection it has with the nature and then how it manipulates the breath in a particular manner. So when we recite a particular verse which is composed in Shardula Vikritam, so it manipulates the breath in a particular manner. So this is how it becomes a specific pranayama, and along with it we have the resonance of the purity of the sounds. So it has got this additional aspect to it along with the manipulation of the breath. So this way, reciting the Sanskrit verses, the chandas, verses composed in different chandas, different metrical patterns, it helps immensely. It does some kind of pranayam in us, and then it the healing starts. So if someone randomly, I have experimented it on many children, like who have low memory power, low concentration power, very hyper, or have no focus and dull, they're not interested in certain things. Randomly you give them shlokas in different meters, and just like help them learning it, and then ask them to recite or sit with them and recite, let them listen, learn, and then recite with you, and you will see that within 3 to 4 months their things start changing because it has got tremendous impact. So this way Sanskritam has many practical aspects, practical things which offers uh, you know uh, to maintain our well-being. So this is where lies the practical value of learning Sanskritam. So one more thing before I end, I would like to say that for a long time, for a really long time, though Sanskritam has got many beautiful features, many scientific elements, many things which are practically doable and practically helpful in maintaining, in sustaining good health, in sustaining many things, bringing clarity, and then bringing a deeper understanding of many things within and without. But the tendency of simply glorifying, the tendency of simply singing the glories of the past has somewhere created some kind of, uh, you know, uh, negative uh, side to the propagation of this language or promotion of this language. So instead of simply glorifying our heritage or singing the glories, let's start using this language in a conscious way, not in a very mechanical way. So when we are reading Sanskritam, when we are reading or using even a particular or single word or a single verse or a single mantra, let's do it with awareness. Let's feel the vibration of it, feel the purity of it, feel the mantric force that it carries. So when we do it with this feeling, and whatever we are doing, if and understanding the meaning of it, so it is not just for the sake of doing it, but whatever we understand, if we can put it into practice into our day-to-day life, because practice makes a man perfect. So practice is more important, not just preaching. So with this, I would like to end today's session. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.